Today I'm talking to Russell Speirs, founder and chairman of RS Academics Limited. Let's get into this episode right now.
Welcome back to I'd Rather Be at the Beach by Simon Jones, who runs the Bonjour Agency. If you work in an independent school, then this is the podcast for you, where we don't talk about work, but we do talk to people in the independent school sector. It's fun, it's fascinating, it's fabulous. So let's jump into it.
Russell, thank you for joining us on this episode of the podcast. We're recording this on a Tuesday, but how are you today on this fabulous Tuesday?
I am well. I went to the dentist this morning, had a couple of surprises, but I'm okay.
Oh, normally when you have a surprise at the dentist, it's not a good surprise.
No, but it wasn't as bad as the last time. So
Okay.
No, I'm fine. Thank you. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, good to hear it wasn't as bad as last time. Sorry to hear that it was a surprise in the first place, or a couple of surprises.
Financial surprise as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. Dentists can be expensive, can't they?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I often feel it's like getting tyres done on the car. It serves no additional obvious benefit straight away. Clearly, tyres do look after us in the car, but it feels like it's just an expense that serves no other purpose. So
yeah, it's like when a school replaces its boilers.
Yeah, good example. Yeah, very good example. Russell, a lot of people listening to this podcast have their own children. What does your family look like?
I have children as well. I have 3 sons, 3 teenagers. They don't live with me all the time. They live with me about 40% of the time. The rest of the time they're with their mum. And then I'm not exactly their dad at all, but my partner has children as well. So I'm very close to them also. So there are 5 children in my life. No, so life is actually pretty good as a parent at the moment. Yeah.
That's good to hear, isn't it? Because, often we think about our children, we think about how happy they are. It must be a really reassuring thing for you, for any parent listening to this, certainly for me and my children, then it is a reassuring thing to know, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, I did well at school and went on to university, and I did well at university. But for me, honestly, all that matters for my children at school, and it's a cliche, but absolutely all that matters is that they're happy and that they feel good about themselves and who they are as a human, and the rest will follow. So, as a parent, I've got to contribute to that situation, of course, but the school has a big part to play. So, yeah, and anyway, they do feel good about themselves. They are happy. And so the rest is following, so they're doing well. Thank you.
Tell me something about RS Academics, just for anyone who doesn't know what you do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you. So we've been going quite a while now. So over 20 years, we celebrated our 20th anniversary on a boat on the Thames with a few hundred people, which was brilliant, just a couple of years ago. So we've been going quite a while. We work only with schools. So that's perhaps I take that almost for granted, but that's perhaps quite unusual. So we only work with schools, but the schools are now all around the world. So that's quite exciting.
And generally independent or fee-paying schools in?
Well, around the world they are, yeah. So we don't generally work with government-funded local schools outside the UK. I mean, we call them international schools, but I suppose a more correct word would be private international schools. So yeah, they're charging fees to parents. In the UK, we work with government-funded schools as well, and academies and maintained and state schools.
Okay.
So yeah, and then we offer a range of services, but we've got this sort of strap line or mission or both, which is about helping schools to thrive. That's always been at the heart of our mission. But it's only relatively recently that I've actually kind of articulated what that really means, what a thriving school is. So all of our services help a school to thrive, whether it's through the leadership or them being sustainable businesses. That doesn't mean rich with lots of facilities, it just means sustainable. And then the other part of being a thriving school, of course, is for them to be happy and safe learning communities. So we help with that in different ways, which I can tell you about or not. It's probably not what people want to hear anyway. They can go onto our website if they want to hear more. But I'm very proud of what we've done. I'm not trying to dismiss it. I think we're a great company, but yeah.
And in a nutshell, I mean, helping schools to thrive, that's absolutely great. But in a nutshell, practically speaking, what is it that your company does? What is the actual service there?
Okay, so the services fall into a number of different headings. The one that we're best known for, because it's visible, and people are curious to know, who's got what job, is our appointments business. So we help with a very large number of appointments every year in the UK and internationally. And so it could be a marketing role. So I noticed just now that we're handling, I noticed because I'm not as close to everything as I used to be, but we're handling the director of admissions for haberdashers, just outside London. We're also handling the equivalent of the bursar position at rugby school. And we recently handled the head appointment at Winchester College in the UK. So we're doing a lot of appointments, but my background is actually in marketing and market research. I used to work for Unilever, and then I became the marketing director of Uppingham School a long time ago now, nearly 30 years ago. So we still do a lot of work that's supporting marketing directors and admissions directors, so market research, marketing planning. But we also help with governance. That's a really important part of our work, both in the UK and internationally. We have a partner company that focuses on diversity and inclusion. So we're quite broad now, and we help with fundraising. So it's a range of different services that are all designed to just help schools be more successful businesses, better led, and happier places, I suppose.
And the partner company for diversity and inclusion, tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so a few years ago, I was introduced to the guy that set it up. His name is Ewan, which is spelled Johan, but Ewan Jensen. He's a Swedish guy, and he's devoted his whole life to the area of inclusion and helping organizations be more inclusive and indeed be more diverse. And we've actually invested in his company, which is called All In Education. And that's what they do. That's what they focus on. So the thing we do together with them is we do a survey, which we call a sense of belonging survey. So it does actually measure protected characteristics and the diversity of the demographics, if you like, of the people filling it in, whether they're students or staff or recent alumni, for example. But it also very much focuses on whether they feel they belong, because that's really what inclusion is all about. It's about whether someone feels valued and known and understood. And so Ewan and his team help with that. They help have those conversations with staff in the schools about how they can, yes, in some cases be more diverse, but in particular, how they can be more inclusive of the diversity that they do have.
No, I see. Okay, I mean, clearly this is one of those areas where over the last 10 years, we've seen certainly a change in it being on the radar, much more so.
Yeah.
But in what other ways have you seen the independent schools landscape change outside of diversity and inclusion?
Yeah. So, well, in so many ways. I mean, it's very, very different. We've just produced a report. I don't know if you've seen it or if you're aware, but we produced a report just earlier this academic year called The New Art of Headship.
Okay.
And the reason it's called The New Art of Headship is because 10 years ago, in 2013, we produced a report called The Art of Headship. And our most recent study is looking at how the job of a head has changed in independent schools in the UK. And it makes for slightly depressing reading, actually, because it tends to focus, or it does indeed focus on the new challenges which heads have, or the greater challenges that they're experiencing and people expect them to have answers to. But looking at the sector more widely, I mean, there are obvious things like the fact that it's much more consolidated than it used to be. So you have fewer bigger schools, and a greater proportion of them belong to groups. It's still a minority that belong to groups, but a greater proportion than before. So that's a big change. I mean, other things I've noticed that perhaps don't get the headlines. Schools are much more professionally run. So they're more likely to have specialist functions like HR, for example, but also sports coaches are much more likely to be specialist sports coaches. You're more likely to have specialist marketing people, for example, who really, really do know what they're doing, which is great, but it makes them all more expensive. I mean, when I joined Uppingham School as their marketing director in 1997, and it's no thanks to me, it wasn't me being particularly pioneering, but Uppingham School were possibly the first or one of the very first schools to bring someone in to specialise in marketing. I mean, I came more or less directly from Unilever, and all my peers in other schools had been teachers or were still part-time teachers, and very few people actually were full-time marketing directors. So that's a massive change. And obviously marketing people are lovely, so that's great that there are more of them. So yeah. But massive changes. The other thing that's changed is it's the sector itself, the environment in which schools operate, particularly UK independent schools, is much, much less predictable. It's right now, things are quite sort of concerning, I think, how things are developing. So it's much harder to be strategic and to plan ahead, I think, now.
And you mentioned about working with schools internationally as well. I'm going to guess that this is mainly sort of Middle East and Far East region, as opposed to, say, North America, for example.
Well, actually, yes, you're right. Our biggest ever project was actually in North America.
Oh, okay.
So for a school in Canada. But most of our work is indeed in the Middle East and East Asia, because you've got so many international schools there, originally to serve the expat population, but increasingly to serve the local population. So I've just come back from Bahrain, as I know it's meant to be pronounced. Just a couple, in fact, what are we today? Tuesday. So last night, I got back last night from there, and planning a couple of trips out to East Asia next term for various conferences that I'm either attending or speaking at. So yeah, we do a lot of work in those places. Also in Africa, we've done some fantastic work for a school in the Gambia in West Africa, quite a lot of work in Kenya, like one of your other podcast guests, Kathy Campbell, who's I think out there right now as we speak.
Good old Kathy. She's probably listening to this right now, actually. Kathy is.
Yeah, I hope so. Hi, Kathy. So yeah, so those, and in Europe, we've done a lot of appointments work in Europe. Not so long ago, just helped find the next head for St. George's School in Rome, which is, and International School of Brussels, for example. These are top, these are world-class schools in Europe. So it's quite broad, but you're right. The Americas is not our main focus, although tomorrow, this time next week, I'm doing a webinar for some heads in South America. So who knows? Watch this space.
Very exciting, very exciting.
Yeah, no, it is exciting.
And I mean, clearly there are more and more schools opening in Dubai. I think most people are aware of that. But tell me how you see the different landscape between schools in the UK, independent schools, I'm thinking predominantly, and schools in the Middle East, schools in Dubai, schools in Abu Dhabi, schools in Bahrain as well, and just really the difference between the two different regions.
Yeah, well, they are very different, of course. I mean, last year, again, I don't know if you know this or not, Simon, but last year I took a group of heads from UK independent schools out to Dubai for a week to visit schools, and we did it under the name of Dubai Speirs. And it was wonderful, actually, apart from the fact it was just lovely spending several days in close proximity to these head teachers. What was really lovely about it was we went out there to learn, and there is a tendency in other parts of the world to see what they can learn from British schools. And I think British schools think that there's a lot that other people can learn from them. But what was really great about this is we sort of turned that on its head, and we went out to Dubai to see what we could learn from those schools. I mean, one of the biggest differences, which can't be ignored, is that in Dubai, you have, you're right, it's increasing again. They went through a bit of a slowdown not so long ago, but it's now picking up again quite dramatically. But there are probably about 200 fee-charging schools that foreigners can attend, that are also open to Emiratis, but they're mainly international. Of those roughly 200, I think there are only 4 that are not-for-profit. So that's a big difference. The other big difference is that most of them are new. So most of those 200 schools would have been built in the last 10 years, certainly last 15 years. But what's really exciting, and I've noticed this, I noticed this first of all when I went out to Asia several years ago to visit some international schools, but I see it in Dubai as well. You have such a mixture of people in the schools. You have children that maybe they have parents of different nationalities. Maybe they themselves as children were born in another country. You have teachers mainly from the British Isles, but also from other English-speaking countries and indeed further afield. And what happens when all these people come together is you have really exciting conversations about curriculum, about pedagogy, and the schools are much freer to create their own kind of rules as well. So I find international schools, generally speaking, very energizing places because of the diversity, I suppose. And they just really, everyone has got an interesting story to tell. So I love spending time in international schools. It's great. I come back full of energy, apart from the jet lag.
Yeah, no, jet lag can be bad, of course. That just reminds me of a few years ago, I was invited to a friend of mine's barbecue in his back garden, and it was in Dubai, and there were 25 different people there. And I think it was something like 18 different nationalities between the 25 different people, which was just, you talk about the children in these schools from all over the world, then it must be a beautiful cocktail of different nationalities and cultures coming together in these schools.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, one of the organizations that we're very close to, and in fact we support, is called United World College. There are 18 United World Colleges around the world, and they aim for something they call deliberate passport diversity in their schools. And we pay for a scholarship for a student to go to the United World College in Mostar in Bosnia. And there you've got approximately 200 students, and I think at the moment about 80 nationalities.
Wow.
I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah.
It's just imagine spending 2 years in your equivalent of the sixth form, having breakfast with a boy from Laos, and then doing your homework with a girl from Brazil, or it's just wonderful.
It's going to give you a proper global outlook on life, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And we learn more. I mean, the best day of my own professional development, that was CPD, whatever you want to call it, was when I shadowed the UK Audi marketing manager for the Audi car company, and went to various meetings with her in London. I learned more on that day than I would going to a normal conference, because you're having to make the connections, you're having to think, how is this relevant? And I think we can all learn so much from putting ourselves in unusual or different environments, getting out of our comfort zone. So...
Well, they do say, don't they, that there's no growth inside the comfort zone. So we're going to be changed as people the more we step outside of our comfort zone.
Yeah, I haven't heard that before, but it makes perfect sense. I'm going to use that.
Steal it. Take it away. Russell, tell me something you enjoy about running your own business.
Oh, well, I will try and think of something. There are lots of things, but I should say I don't run my own business anymore. So a year and a half ago, I stepped away from being the CEO.
Okay.
Yeah, coming up for 2 years actually now. So I'm very lucky. I've got an amazing colleague called Heather Steich Patel, who's now the CEO, and I give her space. I think I'm actually quite good at giving her space, helping her, challenging her occasionally, but definitely giving her space to run the business. So so she's wonderful, as indeed are my colleagues. That's probably the thing I love most about owning, and to some extent, if not running, then sort of overseeing, leading, representing my own business, is when I hear from a client or indeed a candidate for a job that my colleagues have been amazing. So if I hear from someone who said that they discussed a job with one of my colleagues, and my colleague was the only headhunter that really told them straight what they thought, or was very patient or very kind, or if I go to a school and someone compliments one of my colleagues on the work they've done. So I take it's strange actually, I take enormous pleasure in hearing how good my colleagues have been. So that's one of the joys of the company. It has quite a lot of downsides as well, because it's hard to switch off, which can be quite difficult. You never really stop thinking about it. And I'm always feeling guilty. I've said this to a couple of people recently, actually. I worked out a few years ago that my two main drivers in life, professionally speaking, are guilt and paranoia.
Okay.
And so I don't know if it's that kind of conversation, Simon, but guilt, because I always feel I could be doing more. I always think I should be doing more, and I always feel bad that I haven't worked harder or done something quicker, and paranoia because I am quite competitive. So I've become less competitive as I've got older, as I think as the company's become more well known, and I think we got quite a good reputation. But nonetheless, I am very competitive, so I'm always paranoid that someone else is going to get in there first. So that that makes me feel even more guilty that I haven't done something. so yeah, but it's a strange cocktail. But no, I'm very lucky. I'm incredibly fortunate to have my own business.
And what was it that led you to start it in the first place? Going back, I'm guessing 21 years now. If you can think back that far, I mean, how did it feel at the time when you started, and what was the rationale behind starting it?
There isn't a story there, I'm afraid, Simon. I fell into it completely by chance. I was in a relationship with someone who fell ill. I needed to be with her, and so I jacked in my job and set up on my own and threw my hat over the wall, as some people say. It's only really in the last 5, 6, 7 years that the development of the company has become more conscious, if you like, and more planned. So I've always, I don't take anything for granted. I do feel incredibly fortunate to have the colleagues I've got and the clients that we've worked with. But for the first 10, 15 years, it's not necessarily been planned. So, for example, the first headship appointment, it was a deliberate decision to start working to help schools with the appointment of their heads. That was a deliberate decision. But the reason for doing so back in 2009 was because I thought we might be able to sell more parent surveys, more satisfaction surveys to the schools. Now, we do sell more parent surveys now, considerably more. But what I hadn't envisaged is that the headship appointments business would become almost the engine of the company. So, and I won't claim credit for having foreseen that. Now that it has become so successful, we're now planning how that might develop in the future. We're now helping with the appointment of chairs of governors, for example, and a much wider range of senior people. But no, there's no great story, I'm afraid, for the setting up of the company.
Well, nevertheless, when would you say has been, or which years would you say have been your happiest in the business? Because clearly businesses do go through changes, and it strikes me that, I mean, I might be wrong, but it sounds like it's in its most mature that it's ever been. And that's not to suggest that it was a Mickey Mouse operation when you first started it. But, when we start businesses, there is that blissful ignorance about how certain things should be. And there's more of a tendency just to give something a go. Whereas when it is in a more mature stage, there's more of a reputation which can be at stake if you do something wrong. So, not wanting to lead you down to a certain era, but when would you say your happiest time has been?
Well, there have been happy times throughout for different reasons. I mean, certainly when I set up the company on my own, originally, it was on my own for about a year. And then a couple of people joined me and we worked out of the spare bedroom in my house. I lived on my own back then. And that was, there was a feeling of being a pioneer, I suppose. Everything was exciting. I remember when I first had to register for VAT, and I thought that was worth celebrating. Then I remember when, we hit £1 million income for the first time, and that was exciting. But now it's happier, I suppose, because I have a CEO to run the business. And the main difference that's made is that I don't have to make any difficult decisions anymore. Mm-hmm. So making decisions is, I find, really challenging because you never know whether they're right or not. It's a bit like when you're stuck in traffic on a road and you can see a road off to the left. You think, should I take it? Shouldn't I take it? You never know for sure whether it was the right decision. And so I sort of overthink these things sometimes. So now I've got someone else who can do that. And I've now just launched what essentially is a new business for RS Academics, which is to do with international governance. So the governance of schools, internationally speaking. So we've set up something called IGNIS, which is the governance network for international schools. So I'm approaching that as if I'm starting a new business. So that's very exciting. So that's really great.
So a kind of startup culture there, startup energy, but coming from at least 21 years of experience working in that space.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a good summary. Yeah. So that's given me, not that I'd lost my mojo by any means, but that's certainly given me several mojos. Got even more mojo.
Love that. Yeah. More mojos. Tell me something you're into right now, whether it's something directly related to your work or not.
Right. There is a quick and, obviously genuine answer to that. And that's, I'm learning Arabic.
Oh, okay.
So for the third time, I'm trying. I'm not going to give up. I've had lessons before. They were good. I mean, they were helpful and they provided some basics, but I'm now learning using Duolingo. I'm absolutely loving it. I can't say very much, so don't test me. But it's an absolutely fascinating language because obviously, I say obviously, maybe it's not obvious to everyone, but it goes from right to left. That's the first thing. And any Arabic writing is joined up. The letters are always joined up. So if you were to watch someone type, I can't type Arabic because I haven't set my keyboard up. But if you watch someone type Arabic, the letters will go in separate and then they'll join up in front of your eyes. And when they join, they change. Oh. So certain letters can't join. There are about three letters that don't join with anything before or after. Some letters only join with the thing before or the thing after. But all letters will change their shape. So they look different when they join. So that's challenging. Yeah. And then the other really weird thing is in Duolingo, there are basically almost no vowels. Okay, so I mean there are a couple, but essentially the vowels are created by accents above the letters, the consonants. So, but when you see the signs, I've just come back from Bahrain, and you see signs on the lift or in the menu or whatever, there are no accents, and you're just expected to know where they are. So that's pretty difficult.
Oh, yeah, I can imagine that must be quite hard if you're reading something and there are no accents there, no vowels, understanding how you should say it.
You can't guess. You just know, or you don't. In my case, you don't know. So, and then the other thing is there are different types of Arabic. So each part of the Arab world has its own not just its own accent, but its own words, and it's sort of different, not necessarily different grammar, but it's very different. So when I first started learning Arabic, I picked up a book pretty randomly, really, in a bookshop to help me learn. And I started, and someone, this was for really to use in Dubai, because that's where I was spending most of my time in Dubai. And someone looked at the book and said, "Oh no, Russell, you shouldn't use that. That's Egyptian Arabic. If they think you're Egyptian in Dubai, that's really not going to help you."
Okay.
And I said, there are various reasons for that, which I won't go into now. But I said, if they think I'm Egyptian, I'll be absolutely delighted. But I haven't got to that point.
So how do you find this is received in when you do visit places like Bahrain? Then even just to use the odd few words that you've picked up from Duolingo, then how do you find people receive that out there?
Well, this probably won't surprise you. They receive it really well because I think it shows, I don't know what it shows, but maybe curiosity, maybe humility. Respect, absolutely. I think that was the word I was looking for, actually. So I think it shows respect. Yeah, definitely. The thing is, we relate to the world through language. We might think we relate to it through our eyes or through our ears, but we don't. We only make sense of the world around us through language. And the way that a community or a culture or a country relates to the world is through language. So if I ever want to have empathy for another country or another culture, then I'm not saying it's impossible without learning the language, but learning language is really important. I'm a linguist by background, so I studied languages at university, and so I still speak French and German reasonably well. But yeah, I think languages are really fascinating, and I love languages. Yeah, so I'm really, that's become somewhere between a hobby and an obsession, actually. Learning Arabic. So
I like it. Maybe I should explore some Arabic myself.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
Now on LinkedIn recently, I think it was about a week ago, you mentioned something about, do you have a school uniform? I think it was how you phrased it. And you weren't talking about children in school, but the actual clothes that we wear as adults.
Yeah, that was very popular, that post. Yeah.
Tell me something more about that for anyone who didn't see it.
Well, I can't remember how many years ago, probably about 3 years ago, with my partner, whose name is Donna. So if Donna's listening, hello, Donna. We went to the V&A in London to see an exhibition called Fashioning Masculinity. Fashioning Masculinity. And it just happened to really resonate with a kind of thought that I've had many times, which is that men, certainly in most Western countries, tend to dress in a rather unimaginative way. So we tend to wear shirts that have no pattern, shirts that are not certainly bright coloured. We tend to wear jackets that definitely don't have a pattern. And whereas our female counterparts, professionally speaking, wear brighter colours and have more options, I suppose. And I don't really have the courage to wear. Immediately after going to that exhibition, I went out and bought 2 flowery shirts, and I wore one of them to our 20th anniversary party that I mentioned on the boat. But I wouldn't wear that to a business meeting. I wouldn't wear my flowery shirt to a business meeting, and I can't work out whether I should or I shouldn't. So my post, although sometimes I'm a bit frivolous with my posts on LinkedIn, they're all genuine. I always try to express what's on my mind at the time or whatever it might be. And that was a genuine post about whether it's okay for me to wear the same thing every time I go to school because it's safe. And then should I be sort of branding myself through my clothes? I don't think I should. I think I should be branding myself through my ideas and my personal qualities rather than what I wear. But so that was what the post was about. It was about, do other people think about what they wear for work? And if so, why, and so on.
So do you have a desire? I mean, not wanting to get too deep and meaningful on this, but do you
have
a desire?
Go deep and meaningful.
Okay,
I can try.
Do you have a desire to express yourself more so in clothing, or in contrast to that, you get the likes of Barack Obama, who used to famously wear just dark blue or black suits, one or the other, and never wore anything different any time. Now, clearly he's the president of the US, and so that would be a bit strange if he suddenly turned up in a Hawaiian shirt.
Be cool though, wouldn't it?
It would be. And if anyone's going to do it, though, if anyone could have done it, then surely it would have been Barack Obama. But yeah, is it more about wanting to express yourself?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I'm conscious there's a power thing going on as well. So I often think that the people with the most power are the ones that can wear whatever they want. So if I were going to have a meeting with the CEO of a global schools group, unless specifically told otherwise, I would wear a suit and tie because the other person has got more power than me in that relationship, to put it bluntly. And so, yeah, I think it's an interesting area. It's quite a complex area, but I'm probably just overthinking it. So no, I tend to dress very conservatively, for work. In the office, we always have worn casual clothes. It's always been casual. But so I tend to be relatively smart, but conservative because I don't want to offend anyone. I don't even wear perfume. Well, I used to work for a perfume company. I'm fascinated by perfume. I love perfume and aftershave. I could talk about it for hours, but I never wear it professionally because I wouldn't want to wear a perfume the other person finds offensive.
Oh, yeah.
Strange, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm not a people pleaser particularly, but I just think why risk it? Why wear a powdery, musky fragrance when the person prefers citrus herbal notes?
Or they prefer nothing at all because, I mean, ultimately, without wanting to cast a shadow over your previous career, but any kind of perfume is ultimately, it's a toxin, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think so. Depends. I mean, these days you tend not to get so many natural ingredients in perfumes, but traditionally you would use essential oils. Really, I mean, if you go back far enough, it'd be a combination of essential oils. But no, I never thought of that before. So,
Russell, I'm keeping an eye on time because we're going to need to bring this to a close in a minute. We've talked about LinkedIn though. If people wanted to connect with you and they're not connected already, then is that a good place for them to go?
Yeah, it's probably the easiest rather than trying to remember my email address. And I'm not on Twitter and never have been. So on LinkedIn, the thing to remember is that my first name, Russell, has got 2 L's at the end.
Okay.
And Speirs is also spelt in a slightly unusual way. So it's Speirs. And there may well be another Russell Speirs on LinkedIn, but if there is, I'm yet to meet him. So if you spell my name correctly, you'll almost certainly find me, Russell Speirs.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Simon. That's kind of you.
I'm very jealous of your unusual spelling of your name. There are about 4 million Simon Joneses on LinkedIn, and it can be a good place to hide in that case with a very common name. But in the meantime, to take it back to you, Russell, it's been great talking to you. We'll put a link to your LinkedIn profile in the show notes, and people can just click on that and connect with you. But I appreciate your time, appreciate you being here, and appreciate you opening up as well. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thanks very much, Simon.
So you've just reached the end of this episode. If you would like to have a podcast in your school for your own school marketing, then zip on over to www.thebonjouragency.com. We get your school podcast up and running, and we keep it going for consistent episodes coming out regularly. But if you don't want a podcast, then you're still welcome here at I'd Rather Be at the Beach, because we're just like a big family here. Anyway, the next episode's coming out soon, so click that option to follow or subscribe. It just means that you won't miss it. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.